I think it's signaling that I'm breaking a really bad habit that I used to have. A lot of this was due to my own inability to plan. Back in October, I spent a grand total of... Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Alexandria and I'm currently in the process of building out and converting this van into my home on wheels. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I spent in my first month on the road. Now, if you guys didn't know, I just spent the past month traveling around. I visited 7 or 8 different states, saw my younger brother, went to a couple events, and made tons of friends on the road. So if you want to check out videos from that, I'd recommend heading to the past few videos to see my travels, a backpacking trip, and also 5 things that I now realize I would like to change about my van build as I get home to start finishing things up and tying up the design. Something that I really wanted to incorporate in this video though that I haven't really seen done before was to talk about what I spent when I was living like in a city, the city life, as compared to what I spent in the past month. Everyone always says that van life is a lot cheaper, and I agree with that for most things, but for me personally, that was not something that I found to be true for this first month at least. And there are a couple of reasons that I'm going to cover as to why that happened, as well as what I'm going to be changing moving forward to stick to a better budget and to really just avoid some of these extra charges that I incurred because of bad planning and just really not thinking ahead. Before we jump into it though, if you aren't already, please hit that subscribe button down below to see more videos like this to follow my van build and van life journey. Alright, let's get into it. So I'm just going to go through line by line or category by category, just comparing the values from when I was in a city to when I lived in the van. And then at the very end, I'm going to talk about what I'm going to be changing to get these numbers down and to save a lot of money in the future. So the first category I'm going to be covering is rent and utilities. Now this is typically the largest charge if you're living in a city, and I was no exception. My rent back in October, which is where I'm getting these numbers from, was $1,700, and my utilities cost $200. Now, the utilities is definitely a rough number that did fluctuate a bit, but on average, that was how much I was spending. So in total, roughly $1,900 a month was going just towards where I was living. Now, if you compare that to my current location, obviously I am not paying rent. This is going to come out though a little bit later on in my car payment. So for right now, $1,900 in October, $0 for this past month of June. The next thing, which most of us have, is my phone bill. Now, back in October, I was paying $90, and I actually still have that phone plan, but I've added 2 things onto it. So instead of it being $90, it's now $115. This, however, includes my 2 hotspots. So I have one hotspot that's just built into my phone, and then another separate jetpack from Verizon. So in total, that is $25, and I get 60 gigabytes of data. Now you might be wondering why I have both, why spend the extra money? A lot of my work requires video calling, and then when it comes to uploading YouTube videos and whatnot, I also need pretty good bandwidth in order to do that. And so for me personally, it was worth the extra like $10 to add on another 30 gigs. When I run out of this data, I'll typically just find a library or a coffee shop. There are definitely other ways for me to get internet, but I personally just prefer to be able to work in a forest or on a beach and to not have to go and drive into town in order to get work done. Alright, next up is subscriptions. Now, back in October, I really wasn't doing anything. It was the middle of the pandemic, at least where I lived, and so my only subscription that month was my $10 Spotify subscription. I didn't spend that much more money, but that is up to $40 now, and that $40 includes my Adobe subscription, I have a YouTube, like TubeBuddy subscription, still have my Spotify subscription, and then my podcast platform subscription. The next category could also be called a subscription, if you will, but I'm currently not spending any money on a gym. I will probably get a Planet Fitness or a 24-hour fitness membership in the future, especially now that I am not building a shower in the van. I do want to have access to showers in cities whenever possible, and so in the past I was paying $29.99 for that, and currently I am not paying anything. I think though that probably will go up to I think $20 or $29, so I will be back in the same place there, but currently I have not spent anything on a gym membership. Okay, this next category is honestly a little bit embarrassing, but I am just gonna say the numbers and then provide my justification. This probably does not apply to you. I have a really bad habit of spending in this area, and it's something that I really want to work on. I think realistically I could probably almost cut this in half, but yeah, we'll see, I guess. This category is food, and I feel like maybe some of you can relate to this, but I try my best to not eat out. I try not to go to restaurants. I try to prepare my own food, and living in a van, that was no exception. I only ate out, I think, 3 or 4 times, and those were always with other people, and 3 of those occasions were for birthdays. So for me personally, most of my food money goes towards my grocery bill. Back in October, that was $587, and this past month in the van, it was $677. That is a ton of money to be spending on food. So I'm really hoping to cut this category down by at least $300 a month. I eat pretty simple, and I think just by getting like fruits, veggies, rice, beans, those sorts of things, I can very easily cut this down. So unfortunately, I spent more money in this category this past month than I did back in October, but I'm working on it. The next category is what some people might consider rent when you're living in a van, and that is gas. Now, this past month is definitely not typical, not for van life or regular life, and so for me personally, I don't want to consider this the rule because I do not plan on traveling this quickly, this rapidly in the future. I much prefer slow travel. And so my gas bill in October was $119. That mostly consisted of driving to and from the grocery store, driving to the place that I would go run a lot of times, going to the beach, those sorts of trips. I had a Toyota RAV4, so I was getting like 30 miles to the gallon, super efficient car, and also winter gas prices, which if you're not from California, maybe that's not a thing, but it's definitely a thing here. I think gas was probably like $2.99 or $3, and now it's like $4 to $6 even. I've seen it some places recently. But regardless, this past month, as compared to $119, I spent $665 on gas. That is a ton of money, but again, I drove over 5,000 miles this month, and so that will not be typical in the future. I probably won't even drive 1,000 miles a month in the future, and so cut that down by 4 or 5 times, and I'm right back around that $100 to $200 range, which I'm personally pretty comfortable with as long as I'm able to live and exist in places that I enjoy. Alright, next up we have my current rent payment, if you will, and this is my car payment and car insurance. Now my current car payment is $618, which honestly for rent is really great. I literally cut my bill down in a third of what it was. I used to pay again $1,900 and now I'm paying $618, so pretty happy with that, and honestly it's allowed me to get a rig that is much newer and much more reliable. I have a great warranty on the van. I'm super happy with that purchase. And then my car insurance is a little bit elevated right now because in California I had to insure this vehicle as a commercial cargo van, and when I spoke with my insurance, they had just said that because it does not currently have running water, they can't insure it as an RV, even though I am living in it already and building it out to be an RV. And so when I do end up putting running water in, when I have a toilet, when I have things like that, I'm gonna go back to Progressive, who is my insurer, and try to insure it as an RV and register it as an RV. But right now I'm paying $316. I mentioned that I was driving a RAV4. I was financing this car. I did not buy it outright. So my car payment for the RAV4 was $388.40, and my insurance for that vehicle was $116. Alright, so I probably should have grouped these in with my groceries, but the next 2 categories are restaurants and coffee. Yes, coffee has its own category because I honestly thought that I was spending a lot more money than I did. So for restaurants, I mentioned that I had a couple of birthday parties this past month, and so I ended up spending $338 out at restaurants. $338 is being compared to $86 that I spent in October. That's a much more realistic number for me personally. It might be like getting a breakfast burrito when I go to the beach, or grabbing ice cream for dessert one night, things like that. I just don't really eat out that much, and so I think in the future having a budget of $100 to $150 will still allow me some flexibility to go out with friends when I do want to, or to celebrate somebody when that comes up, but it's not going to be a regular occurrence or a regular spend for me. And the next category, as I mentioned, is coffee. Now, I spent almost the exact same. I was within $1. In October, I spent $57.65, and this past month, I spent $58.67. So extremely close. Coffee is something that I consider to be a ritual every morning. I typically make my own, but when I do go out and visit other places, I like to buy bags of coffee if I really enjoyed their coffee. I like to go out and kind of sit in a cafe, get some work done, grab a quick breakfast, that sort of thing. And so for me personally, I think $56 is fine. Alright, so the last 2 major categories are miscellaneous and gear. Now, gear for me personally is something that has to do with sports, so I bought consignment climbing shoes. I went for a backpacking trip that I wasn't prepared for, and so I had to buy a backpack and a sleeping bag. They were all super cheap, but over time that stuff does add up. And then I mentioned I also had a couple of friends' birthdays and my brother's birthday, and I ended up buying him a really nice Osprey pack. And so REI definitely got the better half of my paycheck this month, and I spent a total of $841.30 on gear. A lot of this was due to my own inability to plan. I completely forgot my backpacking and camping gear at home. I forgot my hammock. I didn't shop the deals for my brother's birthday. I just kind of really screwed up in this category, to be completely honest. And although gear is a big part of my life, I enjoy spending time outdoors, and that's why I ultimately bought this van, was to be outside. This is definitely not something that I want to see happening regularly in the future, and I don't think it's something that I will have happen regularly because I already do have the majority of my gear. I just forgot it all at home. This is not a normal spend for me, and it probably is not a normal spend for you either, but it did make up almost a quarter of my spending this past month. Now, in comparison, back in October, I spent $149.58. Looking to get back to that in the future, definitely not wanting to spend $800 again. Alright, and the last major category is something that I'm actually pretty proud of, or that I was really happy to see, because I think it's signaling that I'm breaking a really bad habit that I used to have. Back in October, as I was mentioning, I lived in a city, and so I had really quick access to Target and World Market and Pier 1 and all these places. I was also in the middle of furnishing a new place. I just moved out to a new city and was still getting my room set up, and so I was kind of just buying stuff here and there, spending $30, $40, $100, just kind of offhand, not really thinking about it. So I was pretty shocked to go back at my credit card statement and see that I spent $768 last October. For me personally, when I was out on the road and I needed something, if I wasn't close to town, it wasn't like a simple, I'm just gonna go drive to Target and go get that. I really had to be intentional about what I was purchasing, why I needed it, and if I already had something else that could fill that need. So really happy to see that and to have dropped that by over $500, because this past month I only spent $220 in this area. Alright, now the last couple of categories are kind of fun. They're something that really just applies to van life, I think, more so than regular life. And these are campground fees, maintenance, showers, and laundry. Obviously, showers and laundry used to be included in my utilities. I paid for water at my old place, and now they just come out of pocket as individual purchases. So this past month, I spent $14 on showers. I took 2 showers, like at a paid facility. The rest of them were in the back of my van, or I used a friend's shower, things like that. So $14 on showers. I spent $10 on laundry, and I actually got to do laundry twice, which was kind of luxurious to only have to spend $10. In the past, again, I obviously did not pay for that. So the cost in October was $0 for shower and laundry because I can't calculate that out of my utilities. And then in this past month, I paid $14 and $10 respectively. Now, campground fees were a little bit wonky. So I used to go to this state park near my house all the time, and so I would pay $5 every weekend that I wanted to go. The pass was good for 3 days. And so back in October, I spent $17.86 on campgrounds or fees. And then this past month, I spent $42.58. And the last fee that I'm going to talk about today is maintenance. Now, this is kind of funny because something that I lumped into this category was getting towed. I got stuck twice this past month. One time I was able to get myself out, which was awesome, although it was quite scary. I thought I was going to flip the van over. But the first time I got stuck, I tried everything. I even burnt through my friend's floor mats. So Megan, if you're seeing this, please tell your mom I'm sorry. But it took us about an hour trying to get out before we finally just realized that we were digging ourselves a deeper hole, literally. And so I ended up having to call AAA. Out of pocket, that cost $100 for a tow of literally 10 feet just to get out of some sand that I was stuck in. And then in addition to that, I spent $14 on a car wash. In comparison, back in October, I paid $25 because I used to have a subscription to get my car washed. Now, here is the moment that you guys have all been waiting for. I know that was a lot of money and a lot of different categories. Back in October, I spent a grand total of $487.24. And this past month, I spent $4,069.14. Not a big difference at all. Honestly, to only see $300 difference is pretty insane to me. But again, I think it really did just come down to a couple of those major categories. If I cut down on those areas, just down to the budgets that I was mentioning, I would literally save over $1,500 a month, and I would bring my total monthly spend down to $2,500. Now, that is still living luxuriously. I'm not cutting out showers, I'm not cutting out campground fees or my subscription costs or gym fees or any of that. I would still get to spend on all of those things, and I would still be saving an extra $1,500 a month compared to when I lived in this city. Before I close today, I just want to make a point to say that these numbers are definitely not what you should expect to spend in a van or what you need to spend in a van by any means. These are simply numbers based on my lifestyle, where I live, and the habits that I have formed. But at the end of the day, I hope that if nothing else, this just gave you an idea of where you might be able to expect to spend by category, where you might be able to start planning for your own van life journey, and how you might think about budgeting as you move forward, or habits that you want to change. Like, I want to change a lot of my habits as you transition toward a more nomadic lifestyle. If you found this video helpful, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, as it really does help support my channel and boost it out to other people. And don't forget to subscribe down below to see more videos like this and others about my van build and van life journey in the future. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I will see you guys all next week.